Warning: this video contains sensitive material about a man who took his own life. If this kind of content disturbs you, I suggest you click off this video. Also, this video is in no shape or form trying to promote Donnie Moore's lifestyle, but instead documented for educational purposes. Now on to the video. There is a part of sports that people don't tell you much about. It's the part of the game where players must deal with plenty of anxiety, as one poor performance could end your career. If there was one pitcher who suffered a lot of stress and pressure, it was Donnie Moore. Moore was looking like a beast in the mid-80s. He was putting up all-star stats and was considered to be one of the best bullpen pitchers at the time. But after one poor performance in the biggest game of his career, Moore's life went downhill. He started playing worse, teams lost interest in him, and he was out of the league. Moore was so traumatized by his poor performance that he went down the darkest path he could ever imagine. He attacked people close to him, started going crazy, and eventually ended his own life. This is the story of how a home run took the life of Angels relief pitcher Donnie Moore. Before we get to Moore's bad game, it's best we flash back to the beginning of his life to see how he got to the position of an all-star player. Donnie Ray Moore was born and raised in Lubbock, Texas. Growing up, he had connections with professional baseball players like his cousin Hubie Brooks. Brooks was a beast in his prime, a two-time all-star and a two-time slugger. Moore would attend Paris Junior College and Ranger College before eventually declaring for the MLB draft in 1973. He got the attention of plenty of scouts, so he was drafted 3rd overall by the Chicago Cubs. The man looked like he was capable of being an all-star caliber pitcher. He stood at 6 feet and 185 pounds. Moore would get straight to work in the minors and put up insane numbers. In 1975, he started in 27 games and had a 2.97 ERA with 123 strikeouts. He pitched so well that the Cubs decided to call him up that same year. He only played in the minors for 3 seasons, so he must have been something special, right? Well, why don't we take a look? Donnie Moore's MLB career started slow. He only had 4 appearances in 1975, missed 1976, and put up some average to disappointing numbers in the next 3 seasons. In 1979, he had 39 appearances and went 1-4 with a 5.18 ERA and 43 strikeouts. Since he didn't prove enough to Chicago, on October 17, 1979, he was traded to the Cardinals for their second baseman, Mike Tyson. Moore lasted 1 year in St. Louis, where he barely did anything. He had 11 appearances with a 6.23 ERA. It was apparent something wasn't going as planned for Moore. He had just finished his 5th season of ball and had yet to be anywhere near all-star caliber pitching. After 1980, the Cardinals decided they had enough of Moore. In 1981, the Milwaukee Brewers picked him up. He lasted for 1 more season, where he only played in 3 games. It was clear that Moore wasn't the healthiest player on the field, and because of that, the Brewers decided to trade him to the Atlanta Braves. Atlanta would finally be a place Moore could call home, and it was also the place he started to pitch a lot better. In his final season with the team, 1984, he went 4-5 with a 2.94 ERA and 47 strikeouts in 47 appearances. Moore was starting to look like the all-star the Chicago Cubs envisioned. He was proving himself to the league at 30 years old. After the 1985 season, Moore became a free agent. He decided not to re-sign with the Braves and instead go play for the California Angels. The right-hander signed with the team for a season where he had his best performance. In 1985, he went 8-8 with a 1.92 ERA in 65 appearances and had 72 strikeouts. He pitched in 103 innings. He was rewarded as an All-Star, placed 7th in Cy Young voting, and 6th in MVP voting. Do you know how crazy it is for a relief pitcher to be top 10 in MVP voting? It's absurd. The Angels would gift Moore with a 3-year, $3 million contract. Moore would get right to spending as a third of the money was dropped on a house in Peralta Hills, where you usually find multimillionaires living. He moved into the house with his wife Tanya and their 3 children. They were a happy family living in a big house. Things were going well until 1986, when stuff started going downhill. 1986 started off as just another season of balling for Donnie Moore. 4-5, 2.97 ERA, 53 strikeouts and 72 innings pitched. He was a beast. While he played well throughout the season, he suffered some bad injuries. He had a muscle strain in his ribcage, which doctors then discovered was a bone spur by his spinal cord. After that tough injury, Moore started feeling pain in his elbow and shoulder. He would be on medication due to his pain, but also for the migraines he had been suffering. So in terms of health, Moore was a mess, but in terms of performance, it wasn't bad just yet. But when the playoffs came, things got tough. The Angels finished the season going 92-70. They were first in their division and had plenty of momentum going into the playoffs. Then came the ALCS. The Angels were playing against the Boston Red Sox, who had some incredible stars back then. To name a few, Wade Boggs, Bill Buckner, and Roger Clemens. Game 1 was a blowout. The Angels won 8-1. The Red Sox responded in Game 2 with their blowout. They beat the Angels 9-2. The Angels fought back in Game 3 and won 5-3, and Donnie Moore got the save. Game 4, the Angels just squeezed in a victory in extra innings as they won 4-3. The Angels were one win away from advancing to the World Series. They were up 3-1, so they had this in the bag. Right? No, they did not. Game 5 started strong for the Angels. They were hitting the ball well, their pitching was elite, and they had a 3-1 lead in the 9th inning. It was 5-2. The Angels decided it was best to leave their starting pitcher Mike Witt in the game, and that would end up being a mistake. Reggie Jackson was so sure of the Angels winning this game that he congratulated the Angels skipper Gene Mach. But the next 4 words Mach said would turn into a reality. It isn't over yet. Witt would give up a 2-run home run to the Red Sox infielder Don Baylor. He smacked a breaking ball over the fence to make it a 5-4 ball game. The pressure was on in Anaheim. Witt would work his way through the lineup, and eventually, they were 1 out away from moving on. Top of the 9th, 2 men out, 5-4 ball game. Everyone in the stadium was getting ready to party because their starting pitcher was about to end it. But Gene Mach decided it was best to let his starter rest. He was gassed, so why not let the bullpen finish it off? Mach brought in Gary Lucas, who was a relatively good bullpen pitcher, but Lucas would hit the first batter he faced. It was the first time he hit a player in 4 years. That's approximately 400 consecutive innings without hitting a man. Mach immediately took him out of the game and instead brought in the star bullpen pitcher, Donnie Moore. People thought this was a great move because he would have to pitch against the righty, Dave Henderson, who was a poor outfielder. Moore had 2 strikes on Henderson. He threw a fastball that he fouled off. His manager then told him to throw his splitter. Moore delivered, but the ball had no snap, meaning the pitch movement was much smaller, which makes it a lot easier to read. This was also an off-speed pitch, so Henderson had enough time to read it. He smacked a home run over the fence, and the Red Sox took the lead. Who knows what might have happened if Moore hadn't dealt with injuries before the game. But when I tell you that this left a dent in Moore's career and life, I mean it. The Angels would lose the game and blow a 3-1 lead to the Red Sox, and they would get eliminated. Plenty of people were to blame for the blown lead, but the person who got the most fingers pointed at was, guess who? Donnie Moore. Moore would share his thoughts on what happened and what he could have done for a better outcome. After Game 5, he said, quote, "Maybe if I tried to blow it past him, we'd be drinking champagne right now." Because of this home run, Moore never let go of the past and kept beating himself up about it. He would openly admit to his team that, "Every time I throw, my arm hurts," but would then say, "That's not why I lost the game. I was terrible." Later in the series, he said, quote, "I'll shoulder the blame. Somebody's got to take the blame, so I'll take it. I threw that pitch, I lost that game." And he would add on by saying, "I don't believe the pitch cost us the game, we could have still won it." Moore kept going back and forth with this and never decided to move on. And it's probably because his career was a lot worse after this game and season. Donnie Moore's performance started to weaken after 1986. He put up some star numbers in 1987, but barely played because of his injuries. He would play one more full season in 1988 with a 4.91 ERA in 27 appearances, which is poor. He was playing so badly that in August of 1988, the Angels decided it was best to part ways. He was released. And 1988 would be his final season ever taking a major league mound. But his baseball career wasn't over yet. In 1989, the Kansas City Royals signed him to a minor league contract where he played in AAA. 1989 would be the final season of his baseball career and the last year of his life. When Moore returned to the minors, he expected the competition to be easy. He thought since he was an all-star in the majors, it meant he could plow through the minors. And that mindset mentally destroyed him. One of his teammates, Bill Lasky, explained Moore's performance and the thoughts that were going on in his mind, saying, quote, "When you've pitched in the big leagues, every hit you give up in the minor leagues is hell. You're like, I can't get these guys out. I swear to you, the last few times got hit so bad, it tore him up. He got pounded." When Moore's performance slowed down, so did the money. He could no longer afford the house in Peralta Hills, so he put it up for sale. Moore was 35, and his baseball career was over. He suffered from complex injuries throughout his career, he gave up a home run in the worst possible moment and never forgave himself for it. And on July 18th, 1989, Donnie Moore would officially lose it. Donnie Moore had brought a gun into the house and pointed it at his head. His wife and kids were in the room. His wife asked if he would do it in front of his kids. Moore then took the gun away from his head and put it at hers instead. The first shot went through his wife's neck. His following 2 shots missed, but he landed the next 2 on the chest. Moore's oldest child drove her mother Tanya to the hospital, which is when Moore pointed a gun to his head and took the shot. His children witnessed him do it and screamed for help. Moore's wife would survive. It was a miracle. But he didn't. Tanya said she forgave him, but she only wanted to know one thing. Why? Why would he endanger his family? Why would he do this to himself? He didn't deserve it. Nobody did. The baseball world was stunned by his death. It was so sudden and unexpected. My heart goes out to the Moore family, and I hope Donnie Moore forgave himself because it did not require him to take his own life.